My guest today is one such wise and healing humanitarian clown. Guy Giard is an award-winning multidisciplinary artist, lecturer, teacher, and museum educator whose artworks have been exhibited in Canada and abroad. He graduated from the Fine Arts State Academy in the Netherlands and has worked at the Louvre, at the Museum of Modern Art Georges Pompidou in Paris, the International Center of Contemporary Art, the Canadian Center of Architecture, and Montreal's Museum of Fine Arts. More recently, he has brought his many talents to the world of therapeutic clowning and has traveled with Patch Adams himself to Guatemala and India to bring healing to communities in the developing world. Guy, it is such a pleasure to have you on this show. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, Maia. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? That was wonderful.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be on your show. Yeah.
I can't think of a more perfect first guest. So, Guy, I know that you actually don't necessarily use the term humanitarian clown or therapeutic clown, but you refer to yourself as a love clown. Why is that?
Well, I love your introduction because what you quote from Patch, I think is just perfect. It's like the red nose is basically a symbol to say I'm a safe person, and basically you can do whatever you want with me. And in the hospital situation or orphanage, kids or even adults, you were there, you lived the experience. You're out of your comfort zone, and you don't have any power. It's like you just have to listen, and you do your best with your feelings and emotion. And with the nose, then suddenly there's somebody who's there just for you, and you can just go and you can either have a hug or just hold hands or have a laugh. And it's all about caring and all about loving. Humanitarian, yes, because I travel as a volunteering clown, and there's so many, there's doctor clowns, as you mentioned, and then humanitarian clowns, and then care clowns, and Barnum clowns, and stuff like that, and show clowns. I think it's like the easiest way to say it is like love clown, because it's all about that. The clown is just a opening of the door, and then to give more love to this world.
That is definitely what I experienced when I met these wonderful clowns at the hospital. It really was all about love and nothing to do with what was going on around, which is why it was such a special moment. Now, you have not always been a love clown. This, I think, is something a bit more recent for you. Can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to love clowning? What was your journey?
My journey, it's been quite a long one, in the sense as when I heard everything you told about me, I said, oh my, that's all me, all these art exhibition and stuff like that. But basically, when I was making artworks, I was always artwork about social issues. So I've been familiar with a family relationship, with the history of slavery, with communities like the First Nation communities losing their roots, people who have to fight for their civil liberties. And these were the subject matter for my artwork. So one side of me is very, how could I say, deep, caring about humanity. And then the other side of me is a side that's very, half my life is also music. I've been singing in choirs for the longest time. Now you've heard me with the ukulele, and I play in a Bali music ensemble from Bali. So there's music in my life, which is a lot of funny, a lot of humor. And in the last 5 years, I've been doing more and more lectures. So another way to interact with people. And in my lectures, what people picked up right away was the humor, the fact that What you see is me, and I'm not there to impress you. I'm there to entertain you, to have fun with you. So this idea of just giving pleasure and education at the same time became one of my core values. So then I decided, okay, well, if people do find me funny and they appreciate this from me, I will go to clown school. And I went to one session in kind of introduction to the clowning, which was really fascinating because it kind of pushes your button about. It's kind of funny to say that I'm a very shy person, but being a clown is a way to actually show more of yourself in unconventional manners and stuff. And then I went to meet Patch Adams, and as you say, that moment changed my life. Everybody told me that clowning will change your life, and I recommend it for everyone. And it did. And I decided, yes, my dream since I was young was to, when I was like 10 years old, I was asking myself, how come we send people to the moon when half the world is starving? So I don't know if all kids think like that, but that's something that was very close to me. I don't remember if, when we were at university, apartheid in South Africa was still happening. And that really hurt me, that concept. And I went to Berlin while there was still the great divide between the East and the West. So I've always been extremely sensible to the suffering of the people and the communities. And when I experienced this first-hand clowning, it's like I say, well, okay, now it's time to go to the other side. Instead of just talking about changing the world, I'm actually doing it myself by going to Guatemala, by going to India, by going to Peru.
It sounds like you've always loved people, and clowning just gave you a vehicle in which to do that. Can you tell me about the first time that you met Patch Adams? What was that like? I've never actually met him myself. I've never had that wonderful opportunity, but I'm curious what he was like and what your impression was.
Well, the how I connected with Patch is I became a laughter yoga teacher. And then I went to the laughter yoga conference in Montreal, well, in Toronto. Actually, we both live in Montreal, but that's the first time I met you. I met you in Toronto, of all places. And I decided to say, okay, I want to write a book on laughter because there's so many different perspectives on laughter and on humor. And then I said, well, I must meet Patch. So I wrote to him because in his videos he always says, if you write to me, I will answer you. So I wrote to him, and then weeks, months later, I did get a postcard. And when that postcard for me was like, I was holding Gandhi in my hands. It was like a part of history I was holding. It's like, wow, the real Patch Adams and stuff. And so we wrote, we exchanged, and then we said, okay, so let's meet in Guatemala. So when I got there, well, first of all, I mean, that guy is about 6 foot, 2 meters tall. So want it or not, he's extremely impressive. just the physical contact. But he's a big teddy bear. He's a teddy bear with a bit of with a mission also. Like that. So somebody who's totally focused. And when I sat down with him, finally, because I told him I wanted to do an interview with him, I really started to understand and how he thinks. And that one point that changed my life is the difference between a community and a tribe. And that for me has become also part of who I am today, yeah. And I know we're going to talk about the 7 steps to loving your life later, but actually the 5th step is about finding your tribe. So we'll get back on that later. But still, the difference is that when you feel you're part of a community, what I've experienced as part of a community is that you go to a meeting place. And while you're there with your community, you share stuff. But then afterwards, you go back to your home, and it's like a community is kind of temporary celebration, a moment. But a tribe is, you are the tribe. There's never any separation. You are the oldest person in your group. You are the youngest person in your group. You take care of everyone. You take care of everybody. And that's how when I clown, exactly, we're all connected all the time. And so when I clown and I go see a child and his eyes lights up and I take care of that child, I am taking care of the tribe. I am taking care of humanity. I'm not just taking care of that one person. And that kid or that adult stays with me forever. Yeah.
Tell me more about that first clowning trip in Guatemala. What was that like for you?
Well, it's very challenging because we all have our comfort zone, we all have our habits, and then, I have a dream. That's such a beautiful phrase, or just imagine from John Lennon, also same thing. And when your passion, for me, and we're gonna talk about that later about I love my life and so will you. It's like you don't need to fight against the negative. You just need to focus on the positive. And the more you live your life on the positive, then the more it's going to shine out. So that's how I ended up going to Guatemala. I was scared. I mean, I was really, really scared. I was totally out of my comfort zone. And the first time we went clowning, we went together in a group, and then we just did hold hands and just kind of, Patch said, how do you feel? And I said to myself, I said to Patch, I said, well, I'm scared. And he was kind of surprised. He said, well, why are you scared? I said, well, because I'm scared of the unknown. Because for me in the past, the unknown was always a sign of danger, and control became the main guideline in my life. And he looked at me and he said, well, for me, the unknown is excitement. Because when you don't know what's going to happen, that's mean when there's new stuff that's going to happen and new possibilities. And so it really made me think that the same emotion, the same feeling can actually have two totally different effects, two different perspective on the person. So that really stayed with me. So I went on the trip. And actually, I was very lucky because sitting on the bus, I was sitting by a clown friend. I was getting to know the people. And I actually had a bit of a breakdown there. I started crying. And luckily, I was with the good person next beside me because it reminded me of day camps. Because the last time I was together with a group of people singing songs was in a day camp, and I had when I was a child, and these were very difficult times for me, those day camps and stuff like that. So but actually then came the healing, because suddenly I could reconcile a hard moment in my life to something about giving love. And then when we finally got off the bus, and it was a center for people, kids with mental disabilities, so different level of psychiatric care. But basically the first time I met the eyes of a young child, I totally forgot about myself. I totally became absorbed by this wonderful young person, and that's it. It's like, happiness is just forgetting about yourself and being totally present for the needs and the care of the other person. And that's the tribe mentality.
Was there a particular moment that kind of made you say to yourself, okay, this is what I'm meant to do?
Well, that's a beautiful question. And I think in the past years, it's like I'm really seeing that what I've already, like I've told you, when I was 10 years old, I had this belief about the idea that how can there be so much suffering in the world while we have so much technical advance and stuff like that. So it's like each day it kind of dawned on me that the deepest feeling I always had in my soul was actually all right, and it was okay to have those feelings. So each day I kind of uncovered that it was always inside of me. And I think that's when I think about I love my life and so will you, what I'm offering to people is also this idea that innately, sorry for my pronunciation, but innerly, thank you, we are loving people. We are a tribe. And we get lost in the kind of materiality or what is, you were talking about the newspaper and the bad news and stuff like that. And basically, even today, when I walk the streets, I smile at basically everyone. And then magic happens every day when people say, oh, somebody's smiling at me, and they smile back. And then I see other people who just have to avoid my eyes and stare away. Of course, I do it in a very kind, gentle invitation. But, you know, what I feel is that, you know, our true nature is one of tribe, is one of love. So there's no basically one magic moment. It's just to say, oh, it's been inside me all the time. And one high point was there I can say a specific hour moment of the day when we were clowning at an orphanage, a huge orphanage in Guatemala. And I had spent the whole morning with one young girl and then other kids around, but you know, one just basically focused on me. And it was lunchtime and it was time to let the kids go. And she didn't want to go. She didn't want to stay with me. So I told her, okay, we're just going to go for lunch. And after lunch, we can meet again. And so it was able to let each other go. But as I let her go, a big moment of sadness came in me because I felt, you know, I, at the end of the day, can go home, but for her, this is her home. The orphanage is her home. So when I go, she just stays here. She just stays in her present situation. And that's when the biggest, one of the first lessons I learned about in humanity and clowning is vulnerability. Oh, that's a big one. To be vulnerable, you know. And actually, that's one of the biggest qualities we can have. Is that when you accept your vulnerability, then you don't try to change the world. You're actually open to say, well, I'm not perfect, nobody's perfect, so if nobody's perfect, what can I do? Then you say, well, then I can give, because giving, you don't need to be perfect. And that's what I love about care clowning, or love clowning. There's no quest for perfection, there's no quest for performance. Another nice story is we went to an institute for cardiac operations, and the first room I came in, there was a young girl who had an operation, open heart surgery, a couple of weeks prior. And the interaction I had with her and with another clown, we just kind of, being silly and singing songs and being happy. And there was a feeling of happiness and having made it true and purpose. And, half an hour later, I was in the waiting room and there was another young girl. And I went towards her and with the same kind of attitude to kind of be merry with her, but it just totally didn't happen. It's like this little girl just didn't need to be merry at this point. So I just kind of, okay, I'm gonna do what does she need, what does she want. So basically I just blew her a balloon and then I just held her in my arms for like half an hour. And then later I learned that she was there in the waiting room because she just got her last appointment that she has to be operated next week. So for her, what she needed was a totally different love, a totally different caring, was more of a, peaceful, caring, loving. I'm there for you. We are all together there for you. So, and that's what I love about care clowning. It's not about you. It's not about what about you need. It's actually what you can give to the people.
That's exactly it. And it changes with each person, and at each moment, what we all need is different, for sure, for sure. Now, you are embarking on a new project of personal coaching you've mentioned already, related to 7 steps to loving your life. Now, who are these 7 steps for?